Welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. This podcast is a production of Swaim Strategies, a consulting firm dedicated to nonprofit fundraising events. We're coming to you today from the studios of the AV department. Please welcome our hosts, Kristen Steele and Samantha Swaim.
Well, hello and welcome to the Fundraising Elevator, where we're all headed up. Today, we're excited to dive into storytelling conversations. But before we do, we have a quick announcement. We want to make sure that you are ready to send your fundraising event to school, ready to raise more at your fundraising event. And we hope that you have on your calendar to join us. The Elevate Conference is March 3rd and 4th of 2026. So as you're making your 2026 plans, please plan to join us. It is a hybrid event, so you can join us in person or online. It is a 2-day conference that is all about your fundraising event, the stories you tell at your events, and how to raise more money. You can find out more with a link in the show notes or at our website, Swaim Strategies. We hope you will mark your calendar. Today, we have a delayed, almost a postponed conversation with our guest. Unfortunately, COVID ran.
It's just going to make it. We've learned more.
I know.
We've learned more.
Yeah.
In the duration, we're coming to this conversation smarter.
We are. We're coming to the conversation smarter. We all have aged a little bit, but unfortunately, COVID ran through your house, Chris. You all have recovered. We're so glad to see you. We have Chris Miano, from the founder and CEO of MemoryFox, who's joining us today. It is his personal mission to elevate the stories of real human beings. We love that so much about you. Having served 8 years in the Army, traveling around the world, and learning about the power of storytelling as a tool to connect with people across many cultures, generations, and socioeconomic backgrounds, he believes that through storytelling with grassroots community-generated content, CGC, grassroots community-generated content, the world can become a more inclusive and equitable place for everyone. Chris, I couldn't agree more. We are so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Sorry we had to push this a couple of weeks, but yeah, COVID came through like a hurricane, but we're on the other end of it now.
Love
so
it.
That's good.
Love it.
Well, we are so glad you're here. We're glad everyone in your house is feeling better.
Yes.
I want to just dive into your why first. I want to talk about the heart of the work you do and ask you, why storytelling? Why do you believe so much in it? And how has storytelling impacted you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I grew up learning how to tell stories, probably just like you guys and like most people, is, telling lies around the dinner table to our parents and, maybe our friends and things like that. Like, that's how we learn to tell stories at a young age.
Yep.
And so coming from a very Italian family, Sicilian specifically, a lot of stories and a lot of talking around the dinner table, a lot of hand gestures and things like that. So it's always very much a part of my life and some really fun characters in my family. And I also, I live and grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is a very historical city. And there's a lot of great stories, immigrant stories of Italians coming to Buffalo and Irish and all these different generations of people who immigrated to the city, brought their histories with them, but also created a new history. Yeah. And I think there's such beauty in that story, the immigrant story, of Buffalo and things like that. And I think, where better for me to found this company than in a place like this that has so many great stories. And so I grew up, in that environment, and then I joined the Army. And when I was in the Army, like you said, you really learn quickly the ways to be able to connect with people, because you're taking all these people from all over the country. They could be from Compton, they could be from Connecticut, right? And so but when you're trying to bring people together to unite and to work together, and so storytelling and sharing, right, that's as old as time. It's just how humans connect on the most primal level. And where I was really kind of learned this the most is, I spent some time in Iraq, and I learned a lot. We want to talk about an ancient culture, America's nothing compared to that. And these stories are handed down from generations and generations, 1,000 years. And I always remember this one story. So there I was this brand new lieutenant. We were on one of our first patrols, and we were driving through the desert through to this little town called Kasalia. And it was one of my first patrols, and I was so nervous. And so we drive and we roll up to this city, this little oasis village. And we get there and it's like completely in shambles.
Mm.
And this was my first real intense
Yeah.
experience of like learning about the realities. And you know, there were like craters in the ground, and a lot of the buildings have been reduced to rubble. So we're driving through all this, and we go meet the Iraqi army soldiers that are there. And I'm like, what? Who is that guy over there that's just like set up in that building? He's the only person in this village. And then they said, oh yeah, you know, he refuses to leave no matter what we say and how much we tell him it's dangerous.
Oh.
And I said, oh, I got to talk to this guy.
Uh-huh.
And so we go over there. Here I am with my interpreter. I'm 23 years old, you know, dealing with this. And so we go talk to this guy, and we sit down and have some tea. And I'm like, well, why do you stay? Like, what is your why? What is your reason for staying? And he said, when I was a kid, a French couple came and took their honeymoon here, all the way from Paris to our little teeny tiny little oasis village in the middle of nowhere. And they spent a week here. And they used to walk up and down these streets holding hands, and they would come, they would eat bread with us, and they would drink tea, and we would share stories and talk about music and talk about all these great things. And I always think to myself, if um if I leave, it's like those stories never happened. It's
Oh.
like the story of this village dies. And
Huh.
I'm like 23 years, 22, 23 years old. I'm going to save the world, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm just like, holy, I get chills just thinking
Yeah.
about that interaction, right? Because it's like, wow, what a big world there is out there. It's so much bigger than just yourself and whatever perception, you know, we have as Americans of the world. And just this idea of things being bigger than myself. And so he told me that story. And then I told my commander that story. And he told his commander that story.
Mm-hmm.
And that story influenced our command to spend additional resources and focus on that village and the reconstruction of it. Like
Wow.
we were obsessed with it, but just because we were so moved by that story. We're like,
Yeah.
well, this is an opportunity to do something good.
Yeah.
And so we were very focused on that. I'm like, man, and it didn't occur to me until years later, like, the old man told me a story and it worked.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know, and it literally worked, and it allowed it. And we dedicated resources to him all because of that story. And so storytelling like that really always sticks with me. And so I originally built MemoryFox when I got out of the Army as a way to interview pre-dementia elderly to be able to get their life stories. You could sit down with an elderly family member and kind of go through their memories. And we eventually were asked by the Naval Museum here in Buffalo, like, hey, can we use this to collect stories for a fundraising
Yeah.
campaign?
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Ah.
I guess we could give it a try, and it went really well. And so that we pivoted to nonprofit storytelling rather than family storytelling. And it's been great. And it's been such an honor to support, you know, the social good sector. And yeah, storytelling, right? It's just everything, right? It really
Yeah.
connects people, and it's just primal to who we are.
Yeah. I adore your enthusiasm for stories. I saw you on a panel at the Raise conference a couple of years ago, and it's palpable in all that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is the business end of things, the just chatting end of things, but also like an acute perspective on the potential of storytelling and what that is. And I appreciate your all inness to that, because I too am on that train. I think storytelling, if nothing else, that's what we have, and that's how we become a we. Right? Is that I learn to value what you value because you're showing it to me through these stories that then become this nice little package that you can pass along to your commander, and then he can pass along to his commander. What do you feel like the true potential of storytelling is to preserve the humanity of things?
Well, look, I mean, I have there's a mission outside of the business, of course, and this is just sort of a personal mission. And I feel like my obligation as a veteran is to connect people, right? Right. Everything is just, needless to say, right, crazy right now.
Yeah.
And but if you took even the most grumpy hardcore Republican and the most, grumpy hardcore Democrat,
Yeah.
right? And you did a Venn diagram of everything about them, and their stories, you would find that 90% of it, maybe even more, overlaps.
Yeah.
And it's because we all kind of want the same things at a core level, but I think, the way the social media landscape and how profit centric, these algorithms are, and the
Yeah.
way that it generates rage, it just is this vicious cycle of escalation. And so what do stories do, right? They bring people together, and especially when they're used as an inclusive instrument. I don't mean inclusive maybe in some ways that maybe would people use. I mean it truly inclusive of everybody, regardless of political background and
Yeah.
regardless of, whatever, right? Is and emphasizing, you can do this by emphasizing strength-based messaging and not leveraging stories exploitatively to generate rage, but using it as a way to elevate people and elevate things and messages. I just think that's all we got, right?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause
Yes.
I'm not expecting Silicon Valley to figure it out, right?
Right.
So we have to leverage our strength as humans to be able to do this ourselves
Yeah.
and get ourselves out of this and not rely on Instagram to bring us together. So, I don't know. That was a little bit of a rant, maybe a few
No,
hot takes.
I
I
am.
think about this all the time, so I'm
Yeah.
glad you asked.
I have a front row seat anytime you want to rant. Let's go.
Portland.
Let's go.
Well, it's interesting because you first saw Chris speak at Raise.
Yeah.
It has stuck with you.
Yeah.
That panel conversation was a panel about ethical storytelling. What you're talking about right now, Chris, is ethical storytelling. We see when we're working with organizations on preparing them for their fundraising event, we often are trying to tell two stories with them. We're trying to tell the story of why they do what they do and what they do. And in that, we always want one story to be an impact story, not just data, not just numbers, but someone who's been impacted by mission. And we often hear this radical divide in the sector of we don't tell our clients stories. And yet I have seen from my own eyes, I understand a lot of the data around the fact that when someone tells their story, it's empowering. It is a tool for healing. But it has to be done with sort of a trauma-informed lens. It has to be done with a framework of ethical storytelling by the teams that are helping this person with their story. It has to empower and give people a voice. So I want to know, when you're working with organizations, how do you define ethical storytelling? Like, what are those rules or boundaries or tools or recommendations that you have to make sure that we in the nonprofit sector are being ethical in our storytelling?
That's great. And I think, if you asked a couple different people, I think they all might have different nuances on it.
Yeah.
But I think one part is clear. At a foundational level, I believe that ethical storytelling, it's about deeply considering, the humanity of the storyteller.
Yeah.
And favoring an approach that elevates them rather than extracts their stories.
Yep.
And there's two reasons that's good. One is it's just, we all want to do no harm, right? So we would never want to harm the person telling their story. That is almost needless to say. However, extractive stories, they don't work as well.
Yeah.
They just don't.
That's the punchline. That is
That's
absolutely
the punchline. They
it.
just don't. And look, I mean, we're all looking historically, right? We're always looking for that big B, big T, big trauma, right? We're going to sell a big trauma that someone had, and that'll inspire everybody to donate. But nowadays, like, the media landscape is so different, and the volume requirements for nonprofits to be able to, like, build on social media and build through their newsletter, like, you can't be sharing big trauma 5 times a week on Instagram.
Right.
Like, and that story might work once, right? But we live in this kind of have it your way world where it's like people want to be sort of entertained a little bit and they want to feel good. And if you're just bashing them,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just no way to do it, right? So, like, there's so much other stuff that you can do that's involved in talking about the positives of strength-based messaging. And so there's that aspect too. And I think But above all else, I always tell people to keep it simple. The North Star of all this is consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's simple, simple, simple. Just if you have good consent guidelines, like you're 90% of the way there. And that's your North Star. Affirmative, written, informed consent. That they know where their story's going, how it's going to be presented, where it's going to be shared, and for how long.
Yeah.
And I think if you can check those boxes, not only are you obviously doing no harm, but you'll also get better stories. If people know where it's going and all the details of it. So there's practical benefits, but there's also, like, hey, we're trying to have a society here. Like, let's treat each other with respect and dignity, So I think that it benefits both sides of it.
I want to put a little underline on one of the things that you just said about consent, which is how long. I don't think that we talk about that very often. And I think it's really important. I recently was listening to a storyteller, and as she was defining for us her experience, she said, the story I'm sharing now is not who I am, right? Like, it doesn't define who I am now. It's an experience I went through. And for her to be surprised by having that story show up 3 years from now, 10 years from now, without her consent, I think would be sort of a shock to her if that wasn't something that was discussed in advance, right? As a storyteller, if she hadn't given that permission to continue reusing my story, we change in our, sort of evolution in our growth cycles. And she was already so clearly defining for herself as she was sharing her very vulnerable story that is not who she is. It's a trauma she experienced, and she was evolving beyond that, that I, in that moment, just really thought, gosh, I hope that this is a story that this organization continues to ask for her permission to share, because she's already clearly trying to make sure that she's seen in a light that is moving beyond that. And I think that it's so common when we're gathering stories that they reappear 4 years later, 5 years later, 6 years later. And I think it's so important we go back to those storytellers and reaffirm their consent. We've had the experience with 2 different storytellers that when we went back to them to ask them for their consent, both of them asked if they could if they could reshare their story. So we wanted to utilize their story that had been used previously. And they said, yes, but can I reshare it? So it's not the video you have of me from 4 years ago, but it's the video of where I am now. So I can tell you the continuation of my journey.
It's really good.
Yeah. So I think the time duration is something we don't think about enough. So I was really glad you said that. So I wanted to highlight that.
well, look, I mean, that's the new world we live. Only in the last 15 years in all of humanity has time been impermanent. It's this idea that you do something on social media and it's there forever. That's in the 90s, right? You guys remember something happened and then it was over.
Yeah.
There was there might have been a commercial or whatever, but it's just over and it just happened and then that was it. And now everything is so permanent that it's and that's a new concept that we're adapting to. And I think it's okay, but we've been in this long enough to know, to know better.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you can talk about some of that adaptation and how, you sit, talking about Venn diagrams, you sort of sit in this space where as for lack of a technology platform, right, that is helping folks with their story. How is it that technology can help specifically with ethical storytelling, especially when we are witness a bazillion times a day to really unethical storytelling happening on technology platforms and that seeming to drive certain algorithms? How can folks not have it be that technology and ethical storytelling are in opposition to one another?
Yeah, there's some great, especially with AI, I think there's some great things that you can do and that I do and would recommend that anybody does. It's the kind of thing where it's I was speaking at a conference yesterday and we were talking about building your ethical storytelling policy a little bit, and having an SOP that says that you can share with storytellers, and so they get a warm and fuzzy that their stories are going to be cared for, et cetera. And one of the things we talked about was the great thing that AI can do is go find a policy that you like and then drop it into ChatGPT and then say, make me one for my organization that leverages these same pillars. And then it'll switch out all the key points and stuff like that.
Right.
And of course, you're responsible for the end product. But I think technology can be a great tool, or you could use it to review your documents and say, here's our language guide. Make sure I'm not violating any of this. Now, it's not going to be 100%. Of course, we all have to check it. And AI absolutely has biases built into it.
Yep.
But you can do it in those ways that's like efficiency things. One thing I really like to do is using it, and this comes up a lot. People are like, well, can I do pictures and videos using AI? Like, when is that okay? And I always say, look, the number one thing is make sure you tell people that you're doing it.
Yep.
Like, and then it should go without saying, but like, that's the foundational thing. Like, never lie about it or be misleading that like, hey, this is one of the people who attended our program. Like, that's never okay.
Yep.
But it can be really cool to do things that kind of in an abstract way, just like tell the story of something that is representative of the story that you're trying to tell. For example, telling the story of a hammer for a Habitat for Humanity, or telling the story of a lunchbox, or telling the story of a food delivery truck, when you can't, like, because you run into challenges like telling stories about children or different types of difficult situations where people need to remain anonymous. So you can make really cool stuff in ChatGPT or using all these different programs. So like technology is an enabler to it, but at the end of the day, real stories are never going out of style.
Yeah.
Like at no point in my life am I ever going to be moved by an AI video. I mean, maybe, I can't even imagine it, right? Because I would just be like, well, this is nothing.
It's not real.
Yeah, it's not real, right? And like, and so if we're building our story banks and we're building these ways so that we have content with consent at our fingertips all the time, like we can tell stories without the need of all those things. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right, technology is an enabler and it should remain an enabler, but the core of what we do is we're in the people business. And so remaining true to that, I think is just crucial and beneficial, right?
Yeah.
You get better results when you operate that way.
Yeah.
It's so as you look at the sort of framework of ethical storytelling, and then we look at AI, there's actually conversations happening around ethical AI as well. Do you see an intersection there of like, how do we bring the two together as help versus harm and make sure that we're deploying both in a shared space?
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem is that AI and technology grows at such a rapid pace now.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even speak to 2 years from now. Like, what are the ethics of I mean, this sounds so silly, right? But we're not far away where it's like a robot that has an AI somewhat like as a house, like in your house, like doing chores.
Yeah.
Like, can you kick it? Like, can you, like, what are the ethics of like, like what? Like we're wading into all these new ethical waters. Like, for example, if you have sensitive information and you want to leverage ChatGPT to be able to maybe clean it up and turn it into a nice story, well, like you really shouldn't be just dropping people's private information and personal stories into ChatGPT, right? Because then it goes into the hive mind and it's there forever,
right?
Yep.
And so they're not consenting to that, in any way, and we don't know how this is all going to go.
Yeah.
And so the key is to have North Stars, right?
Yep.
North Stars about consent, people-centric rules, SOPs that you follow, and just kind of, stay up to date with things because things are just changing so fast.
Yeah.
And we'll do what we can. Like, that's what I think my job is to like, we'll help stay up to date so that we can keep our customers and our community informed of like, the many dangerous waters of technology.
Yeah.
Don't go left.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy, but we're in this together.
Well, and I have a wonder too, as the very Luddite that I am, that in the acceleration of technology, in the acceleration of computer generated story, the very human story told by a human, does its ability to cut through the noise become amplified? And is it also our responsibility as storytellers to continue to flood the zone with real stories as a way to combat the noise and people's inability to hear human, real stories? And knowing how to identify those? Are we rewiring brains with technology in a way that is changing the ancient modes of storytelling and that level of connection? And what is our obligation as storytellers to really fight to move that forward?
Well, the way I think about it a little bit is this, is like nothing is permanent and nothing is like guaranteed in life. And so we have these fears, right, of AI becoming this ubiquitous thing. And like certainly in our lives, like technology has had somewhat of a uneven track record in making our world a better place, to say the least, right? That's not to speak of everything, of course, amazing things. But you know, and then I look at my kids and I'm like, what? Are they going to reject all this?
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants to do what their parents did. Nobody wants to do, like, every generation zigs and zags. Like, that's just, it's a tale as old as time, right? And you see it kind of in young people. And there might be like a 10-year period where, unfortunately, you know, in COVID, people staying home during COVID, like if you graduated during that time, like you're a little altered.
Yeah.
You know, like you had this unique experience, and like, you know, there's some things that just happen. But it's like I am forever an optimist when it comes to like generational change. And I think the young people are going to be all right because they're going to reject a lot of this stuff, even if it doesn't feel that way all the time, where it's like, oh, those kids on TikTok and AI videos and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you know, like not every kid is like that. Like you meet kids all the time and you're like, that kid is sharp. That kid is going places. They're not staring at their phone, looking at TikTok all day long. And I think we really do ourselves a disservice when we have such a cynical attitude about like the perils of future generations. Like they're gonna reject all this stuff. Like they're gonna look at us and be like, you know, I always think like and this is such an aside, but there's a theory about the Roman Empire that I didn't think we were going to talk about the Roman. Like, what's the meme about men thinking about
How many times have you been
Roman
thinking
Empire,
about it today?
You know, one of the theories is that the aqueducts had what is it? What is that poisonous asbestos or whatever? And not asbestos, but it was something else. And like people went nuts because they went crazy because they were like being poisoned. And I think like hundreds of years from now, they're going to look at us like, man, they were poisoning themselves with all this stuff. And like they poisoned their own children with this stuff. And, you know, but I think that, you know, I love to obviously talk about this if you can't tell, but I think they're going to be okay because they're going to reject all this stuff. And who knows what that's going to look like. And they're going to love us even more because they're going to love real stories and they're going to love real connections.
You heard it here first. The kids are going to be, I am holding you to that. The kids are going to be all right.
Yes.
Well, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we want you to dive into MemoryFox so our listeners can get to know the platform. So we'll be right back.
Ready for your hard work to yield more funds at your next event? Join us at Elevate, a nonprofit fundraising event conference designed to bring our community together and make planning successful events easier. Register today for this hybrid conference on March 3rd and 4th, 2026 in Portland, Oregon, or join us online from anywhere. This isn't just another conference. You'll walk away with battle-tested strategies, hands-on tools, and proven templates that top fundraisers use to raise millions. Your mission deserves fully funded success. Register today at swaimstrategies.com.
Welcome back. We are here with Chris Miano, MemoryFox, storytelling, all the things that are good in the world.
All the things that make Kristen happy.
I know. I'm so excited. So Chris, talk to us about MemoryFox. What is it and what does it do?
Yeah, so MemoryFox is a software that makes it easy for nonprofits to be able to ethically collect, ethically organize, and ethically share the stories of their community, and also storytelling content, so videos, pictures, things like that, just to make sure that you're on that pathway of ethics. And I think at the end of the day, I like to talk about it like this: it's a great way to build a story bank of ethically sourced stories and storytelling content that can be used to raise funds and stand out on social media. I think that's what gets to the key value, is that build that presence of mind that you have a story bank of beautiful impact content and impact stories at your fingertips. So when you're talking to the right donor, you're talking to, a local business, or you're talking to whoever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have that at your fingertips, ready to deploy and ready to influence and help drive impact.
So I'm curious, from the nonprofit side, they're a subscriber of MemoryFox and they're story banking. Is there a tool where they're sending it out to clients to be able to share their own story, so it's collecting it in their voice? How does the interface work?
Yeah. So the way we like to think about is like the whole idea of the setup is that the content kind of comes to you. Because one of the biggest pains that I learned very early in talking with the Naval Museum is like going around chasing stories, begging people for videos. Hey, can you text me some pictures from the event? Hey, can you send me a video from the program? Like, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete nightmare. And even if you get it right, then you realize very quickly, I can't even use this because I don't have consent from any of these people. I don't even know who's in this picture. Like, you run into all those types of issues. So you set up touch points, right? A touch point could be in your newsletter, on your website, in your signature line, in your email, QR codes posted around, especially at your programs and your events. Giving the task to maybe some key volunteers to be your story collectors, and all that content then just comes to you, right? And so you're just building this thing as your story unfolds. The stories are coming to you, and the pictures and the videos are building this bank. So everything is driven by links. So you can send out a link, or you can link to it via a QR code, and the storyteller just simply scans it or clicks the link. And then you can customize the prompts that you want to ask. You can stylize it in almost any way that you want. And it's a really beautiful experience for that storyteller, rather than, I think, the typical way and old school way of doing it, where it's like, we need you to come in, and then we're going to put a camera in front of your face, and then you're going to feel like you're performing for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it kind of puts it in their corner a little bit, where they can share on their own time. They can do it multiple times to make sure that they get it right, and it's just a much more ethical way to be able to collect stories, at volume.
It's dreamy. I'm glad you explained that, because we so frequently are working with development departments that are different than program teams. And they're oftentimes, the clients being served have never met the development team. And so it becomes hard for a development team to source. It also becomes hard for that moment when they do come in. It does feel performative because they're talking to a stranger to them versus talking to their program manager.
Yeah.
The idea, I just heard the sighs of relief, the idea of development professionals being able to see stories coming to them. What a gift. What a generous gift.
It's the best. It's the best, right? That whole presence of mind is just so much better.
Well, and it keeps folks in the lane of subject versus object, right?
Yeah.
And that idea of how we continue to center the teller.
Yeah.
We're putting it in their court.
Yes.
One of the things I do want to add to that, because I think that's a really good point. And one of the things we talk about a lot is that when you let's say the gala's coming up, right? And you're like, oh, we need a gee whiz video. And when you're last minute trying to get stories from people, you are putting a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is a violation of ethics, because you're taking advantage of an asymmetric power system that is we shouldn't be doing, right? We're trying to do no harm here. So I want to make sure I add that, because I think that's a very interesting point.
The future of our gala relies on you. Let's go.
Right, exactly. And then we usually cry, right?
Oh God.
And it needs to be good.
Oh, God.
Well, it's interesting, because we had an organization we worked with for a long time that, because they worked in housing, addiction recovery, people who had experienced a lot of trauma and crisis, they had a general policy of we do not share our clients' stories. And in a leadership shift, this was probably a decade ago, but in a leadership shift, they had a new executive director that came in. And he said, it is part of the recovery process is sharing your story. We find that one of the number one things people need when they get back on their feet, when they're feeling solid, they need an opportunity to get back. They need to feel like they can repay for the gratitude and show that gratitude and be empowered. And so he opened the doors to a ask of their clients to share their story. And they came flooding in, like people lined up to be able to share. I want to tell you mine. I want to tell you mine. And so I think for anyone who's sitting on the fence thinking God's stories won't just come to me, that's not how our organization is structured. I want to push back on that because I've seen when an organization did open those doors and invite people in that it was a part of the journey for people to be able to own their own story, feel like they could tell it in their voice and make it part of their journey. So, I'm a big fan of MemoryFox, and I hope people consider it as a tool. But MemoryFox isn't just a tool. You also are doing a lot of education work in the sector. One of the things that you do is your annual ethical storytelling report. I want to ask, were there any findings in that report, any new information or new data that you have that you want to share?
Well, I was a little shocked by one thing, and I guess I shouldn't be shocked with it because that's the whole reason we created MemoryFox. So I shouldn't be shocked by it. But we found that, so we pulled all these nonprofits and fundraisers across the U.S., and we found that 90% of organizations surveyed said that ethical storytelling was either very or extremely important to both them as a professional and their organization. So that's great, right?
Yep.
And I think probably expected they're responding to an ethical storytelling report questionnaire. So I'm sure that it's interesting to them.
I dare you to say you don't care.
Yeah, right. There was one person that did, and I was like, what's going on here? But what was interesting about this is consent. So in terms of people who said that consent was important, over 90%, both to them and to their organization. Great, right? Because this goes hand in hand. However, only 25% said that they agree that they have a solid system in place for collecting consent.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're doing everything chaotically. And one day it's a printout, one day it's DocuSign, one day it's this. One day it's a verbal, and it's like all these different things, and it's no systemized approach. And I think that's what makes me so proud of what we've built, is to really make that process a lot simpler. And to be honest, there's a lot more to do. Like there's really challenging circumstances, like when you're involving parents with children, right? Like how do you get that, right? The child may be here and the parent is elsewhere. And so how do you get there? How do you get it when there's like 10 people in a picture or in a video? Like how do you easily get everybody's consent? And so we're always working to make it even better, but as a baseline system, that's the thing I'm most proud of. And I think that the ethical storytelling report really, really drove home is that consent is tough.
Is the report something people can find?
Yeah, so you can definitely find it on the website. And I think it's a pop-up that shows up when you arrive there. And you can find it, on all our social medias.
Great. We'll link to it.
Yeah, we'll link to it.
Yeah. And I think maybe my Carly may send you a link as well because it's so cool. And we are in the process of working on the 2025 one, which will have a lot more about AI and about some other things. And what's really cool is that this started on kind of a lark. Like we were just like, oh, it'd be really cool to do this. And every year it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people responding and participating as people like you that are elevating these important topics. And there's some great, great consultants in the industry. And of course, the nonprofits doing the work. It's so cool to see.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to give a shout out to two resources as well. The Ethical Storytelling Summit, which is an all digital, all online conference, and great leaders that are there doing that. And then the Nonprofit Storytelling Conference, two great resources for our storytelling fundraisers out there. So we'll link both of those and the report so people can get some good data behind it.
Yeah.
So we work with, being in events, we work with organizations on their stories at their event. But you also encourage folks to collect stories at the event, which I love.
I do too.
So talk to us about what that can look like and what it can help do.
Yeah, and that might be the hardest time, maybe
Yes.
historically, to be able to do it. And everybody's busy. There's like with all this ambient noise, and like it's hard to get, somebody pinned down a little bit. But it is the best time, and that's when you get the best stories. I think as they're like that's sort of the new media landscape, right? Is like you love your very well designed stories where you sit down and it's very deliberate, but I mean, people should be sharing, I hate to say it, like 3 to 5 videos a week on Instagram and various social media platforms and with their donors like every month and things like that. If you're doing it kind of optimally based on our studies. And so you need a lot of content that's like live content that you can let's just UGC that it gets out there quickly. So talking to people at the events, like as they're doing the thing, you get the little kid at the event who's like, I'm having so much fun. This is the best time. I'm learning this and this and this. If you ask that kid 3 weeks later, like he's, he or she's not gonna remember, what's going on there. And so, like as it's happening is the best time to do it. And so the way that we have it set up, and again, it's with that theme of content coming to you, is certainly one part of it is QR codes are a great way to do it, like putting them up around the event. I was at a conference yesterday and they had QR codes everywhere. Like, tell us why you love this whatever, right? All that type of stuff. And then putting in any sort of handouts that you have, right? That people take with them that they can scan real quickly. And that's good, like when they get home too, because sometimes people don't want to do it on the spot. So that's another way to do it. But what I find the most effective way is every organization has like people who love storytelling, right? Or they love social media and they love like content and they just have such a fun like personality about them. And so finding those people to be your storytelling champions and just be like, hey, one of your side would be a really big help is if at this program, you pull a couple people aside and collected some impact videos and you assign a couple people those, and those, again, that content's just coming to you. They record it on the spot, they do all the consent, and that just goes right to the story bank with you at headquarters and you've got everything there. So and leveraging the people, I think, is a big aspect too, to be able to get that great video as it's happening, right?
Yeah.
That's what people want to see. I think at a very, very primal level, like the action.
Well, and it's a great feedback loop for the organization about the actual event itself.
Absolutely.
Quite frankly, I mean, if you send a survey out about your event, to your point, 6 weeks after the fact, everybody's like, "Wait, which gala was that? I don't remember."
Well, we do this at Elevate, so we capture like testimonials at Elevate of people that share their experience of what are they learning, how are they feeling, what are they getting out of it. And I actually learned more in watching that content afterwards about how to improve, what to do next, what should we make sure we add. So there's a lot of information there. But when you think of like a gala event, the fact that your donors might share their story with you, wow, what gold. That's genius, because then you have their why, like why they show up and give to this organization. That changes how you can talk to that donor. It changes.
Well, there's peer pressure baked into it too, because if you do it at the gala, and there's probably some wine at the gala too, which helps. But like they see other people doing it. And then they're more encouraged to do it. So you build that like momentum to it as well.
I'll tell you how we do it, just if people are trying to figure out when and where and how you collect it. Because it can be as simple as someone with a cell phone, but we usually have like a photo booth up or a red carpet or a backdrop or something like that. And in that, we will often have a camera nearby and ask people as they're stepping up to take their photos, would you be interested in being interviewed? And then they have that moment that they can say a few words to the camera, and then more people step up and take their photo. And each time a brave person says, yeah, then we have that like red carpet host that interviews them. So it kind of makes it feel like the Emmys.
We worked with a customer one time, and the marketing director told me, and of course I've never been able to find this statistic, so this was just his experience, that someone who does one thing other than donate is 4 times more likely to donate again. And so if you collect a story
Yeah.
from somebody who donates, they're 4 times more likely to don't donate it again.
Well, and if you
And some of
collect,
that might be, of course,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
so this is
but
a donor coming to your event that's already donated before to your organization. You collect their story before you ask them to give at the event. Maybe that means it'll increase their giving.
it might increase their giving.
Yeah.
I would love
Yeah.
to do these studies.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's so much, like if we ever get big enough, I want to have someone who's like just doing research, because I think there's so much to learn about that. You know, what gets people to donate? What are the you know, the patterns that you're looking for that indicate that somebody's like a champion,
Yeah.
right? And once you get their story, now they're part of your organization story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like before they were just
That's
a
gold.
donor, but now they're like a part of it. And that goes to that wealth. Oh, and this is one other piece to it that I really like is when you're collecting stories like this, you know, every organization has a lot of different people there.
Yep.
So you have people that are members of different other communities, whether, you know, they're based on their identity or based on, you know, their tastes and preferences, or, you know, they could be a veteran, or they could be, you know, whatever, right? And so if I see an organization and they're always just telling the same stories over and over, I might not see myself in that
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if you, on Veterans Day, highlight the veterans that work at your organization or volunteer at your organization, well, now I'm seeing myself in that organization. Now I want to be a part of that. And so if we're always just telling the same kind of singular stories, you know, you're not taking advantage of the community building effects of telling a diverse amount of stories that are inclusive to all different types of people, to be that welcome sign, right? That like, hey, we're a community as much as we are a cause.
Yep.
Well, so one of our favorite things, I mean, you're tapping into it right now. One of our favorite things about utilizing video as a way of storytelling, because I mean, we can just tell a story right now, but utilizing video as a storytelling format is that we have the ability to incorporate B-roll and showing our mission, showing our work.
Yes.
You know, I may not have ever gone to your camp, but if you show me your camp, I might tap into some nostalgia about my own camp experience, right? If I have never experienced, you know, the work of this organization, but I see the work of the organization, it helps me to have that like another layer of visceral connection. So you and I talked a little bit about the importance of like showing your organization's mission. Can you talk about just like the power of the like show versus the just telling as a part of your story?
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I feel like it's probably always been wired into our brains, but nowadays, like UGC, user generated content is everything. Like that's what people want to see. That's what most of the internet is nowadays. And so, you know, simply just talking about your mission, like there's no way for it to stand out anymore. Showing video of people enjoying the services or whatever it is that you provide, like that's what gets people to feel like they're part of it, like they're present for it. And I think it's also just intrinsically more entertaining, I think, as a medium. And like, what are we all, unfortunately, our brains are wired for entertainment, you know? And so there's an element to that, is like developing that, like moving with the tastes of society to be able to delight them in ways that really like resonate with them. And so, yeah, video, I mean, it's everything now, but like sharing 3 to 5 videos a week is hard.
It is hard. It is hard.
You know what?
Yeah.
We have this idea that we've been working on where it's like a nonprofit to grow, generally speaking, needs to share about 200 to 250 videos a year.
Wow.
So between the
Wait,
newsletter,
we have to resuscitate a few people right
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, we did the math. Because we're like, okay, 3 to 5, you know, videos or pictures or whatever. And we did the math on it. It's not fully baked yet, so I'm still working on it. But yeah, generally speaking, we found that between 200, 250, like that's how many videos you should be sharing a year to be able to stand out on social media and elevate your reach. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a
We're
lot.
not Pepsi. Like we don't have a cadre of like, you know, marketing managers that can go take care of all that and collect all that, or use actors.
Yeah.
You know, like we have to go get those stories. Those have to be real stories. And oh, by the way, we need consent with it as well. And so, you know, like video is all the rage, and that's show, don't tell, but it's hard.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and I think too, the piece about showing that I keep coming back to that you can talk about all day long and it doesn't have the same resonance is you get to take people into the heartbeat of your work. You get to, you get to show them how the work happens, where the work happens,
Yeah.
who is participating, who you're, co-creating the change in the world with. And that is a totally different, when I think of user-generated content, it's because you get this front row seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate calling it user-generated content because I feel like it's totally antithesis to the idea of not being exploitative.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to say I didn't even say it, like community-generated content.
Yeah.
It's like it has like a different feeling to it. Like we're users. These are not users.
Yeah. No, I like community as well.
Storytellers are community members.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about the short form version that you're talking about, though, because immediately as you're talking about 3 to 5, I'm thinking, okay, so we just film a 3-hour documentary about our work and then episodically release a minute of it at a time, right? So how are you tell me what creative ways that you're seeing organizations collect, use, put out short form storytelling that is engaging to donors.
Mm-hmm. By the way, I actually like that idea. Is like creating a long video that you share like every Wednesday, a little bit more of it.
In
I
our
think
next
like
installment.
creating regular, consistent, like anticipatory content
Yeah.
is a great way to build. So I think that's really cool. No, but my favorite way of like short form content is, and I think at 99% of the time we talk about this as a team, this is all people want to do with MemoryFox, is they want to be able to collect 3 to 5 videos. They want to be able to mash them up into one longer video, put some text on it so that it's accessible and all the things that you need to do, and share that. And it tells it's like 3 different stories that tell a bigger story.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's just like something about, I don't know if it's like the psychology of humans where we like lists and we like you know what I mean, like we like countdowns and we like all that stuff, is like 3 to 5 videos of like, you could even just be a talking head, or it could be like the mission in action, like people doing stuff. But yeah, like a composite video of 3 to 5 smaller videos is the best performing stuff on social media. And because you get, you know what I mean, those changes come and that gets you watching a little bit longer. And then you know that there's probably going to be another change. So you're anticipating that. So if you're trying to capture someone's attention and you only have, a split second on Instagram, right? Like those composite videos do really well because they kind of like pull you along a little bit, and they're great.
Well,
So that's I think the best way to do it.
One of the things that I love about this sort of element of being able to collect from multiple locations is that you as an organization can be feeding your own account, right? Like you can be out there as the representative of the organization filming your content. Let's say, for example, you're a food bank and there's volunteer day and you have 100 people out that are harvesting vegetables and packing vegetables and sorting, that you could have the staff person that's gathering those stories. But then you also can encourage all the volunteers to capture it from their lens.
Yes.
And then suddenly you're in this moment where, similar to like, when there's a big concert in town and all of a sudden you're seeing that one moment from like 15 different lenses of different people that were that happen to capture it and share it on social, that it's a way for you to get a richer, more dynamic, lots of perspective version of the same story. Might be the same day, the same event, but lots of different stories within it. So I think what you all are doing is really brilliant.
That's pretty great.
Yeah. It's that welcome sign, right? That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like putting up that welcome sign. And sometimes you can't talk about the people who are benefiting from your mission.
Right.
We work with an alcohol and substance abuse program organization, and like they don't want to do that. But what they do is they leverage their volunteers to talk about the mission and to talk about like how they enjoy being a part of this, the whole thing. So
folks who say we don't have stories to tell,
right? Liar.
Like, let's go back to the beginning. Let's
or it's
start over.
impossible getting stories. Like, well, if you follow our system, you will get stories. But it does require a little bit of thinking, right?
Yeah.
You got to have that storytelling, ethical storytelling framework so that your storytellers feel confident that they can tell the story in an ethical way. Those types of things, right?
Yeah.
Those all drive up success and help you get stories.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, Chris, when we come back, we're going to take just one more short break. And when we come back, we're going to ask you to step into the fundraising elevator. So we'll be right back.
Ready to take your fundraising to the next level? Need to get unstuck in your event planning? Now's your chance to connect directly with the experts behind the fundraising elevator. Book a one-on-one consulting session with Sam for strategic planning and fundraising strategy, with Kristen for your programming and storytelling, or Mary for your registration and data tools. They're here to provide you personalized answers to all your event questions. Don't wait. Raise more at your next fundraising event. Book your session today at swaimstrategies.com. You can also find the link in our show notes.
Welcome back. We are here with Chris of MemoryFox. We are talking storytelling, always a bright light in my day. Chris, we ask everybody on the show to step into the fundraising elevator and think about what is that one tip, that one just like parting words of wisdom you would offer the nonprofit superheroes out there so that they also can keep heading up.
Yeah, my biggest advice to everybody is always this is build a story bank. Have your story bank, have a place where all your stories and your pictures and your videos and your B-roll and all that stuff is in one place, one source of truth for your organization, and provide the ethical guidelines to make sure that the content can be leveraged in a way that benefits your organization. And so you can do that. Like you can do that without MemoryFox. You can have what I always tell people is you can use a Google Sheet and you can link to your piece of content and you can put all the metadata in there, like who's in the picture, who's in the video, does it have consent? Yes, no, all those things. You could scan the written consent, from the program, but it does require a lot of orchestration, right? And that's why we built MemoryFox, is to help people build those story banks. And, but whether you do it manually or you do it using a tool like MemoryFox, like build that story bank so you have the presence of mind that you'll always have the right story for the right person at the right time, when you need it.
Yeah.
Well, MemoryFox has a mascot, and that mascot just got a name. Tell us about the fox and the origin of the fox.
Yeah. So we finally named our fox. The fox's name is Scout, and we're very excited about that.
Yeah.
I think it vibes very well with if you've ever seen us at a conference, we have a very camping theme.
I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
It's nice. I don't have to wear a suit.
I just want to wear flannel all the time.
You
You
have a very Wes Anderson vibe about the platform.
Well, that's very much a compliment.
The cute little fox. Everyone's in matching orange and gray plaid. It's very like going around to the campfire and telling the story. And I'm so glad that Scout finally has a name. And so if people want to find Scout, if people want to find MemoryFox, if people want to find you, what's the best way for folks to get connected?
Yeah, a couple different ways. One is LinkedIn. We're very active on LinkedIn. And I know it can be kind of a weird place sometimes, but it's a great way to find us. And we're always posting content about ethical storytelling and marketing best practices, fundraising best practices. We do quarterly ethical storytelling webinars where we bring in like 4 or 5 panelists to talk about a topic. We just talked about AI and ethical storytelling, but we've talked about consent. We've talked about all kinds of different things. Very, very cool stuff. You can find us on our website, www.memoryfox.io. Just pop in MemoryFox into Google. You'll see us there. We're on all the social medias. But what's really cool and what I'm most proud of, and this is years in the making, is we finally have pricing that is what I think reflective of the impact that we want to have in the social good sector. And we've never really been able to figure out like the tweaks necessary to like build a business that can survive and also have like cheap enough pricing, for lack of a better word. And so we finally did it. We finally built it. So people can now get MemoryFox for as low as $99 a month. That was very important to us to get it under $100. And I think we have a way I think we got it figured out. I think we're always learning about pricing, but I'm very proud of our team in coming up with that, because I think, like I said, that's indicative of Like that's the impact we want to have. We want this to be for everybody, not just organizations that have bigger budgets. And so I hope everybody takes advantage of that pricing, and we would just be so honored to be able to support, all your organizations.
Amazing.
I
Well,
love that.
Chris, thank you for being on the show today. I want to give a shout out to Carly and Natalie on your team, who are great hosts of the webinar series and do a ton of great education and bring a lot of great content. We tune in often, and we're so appreciative of the work they're doing. We learn so much from you, and we're so glad that you were able to join us. And I'm so glad your family's all feeling better. So
Thank you. I'm glad to.
Well, thank you for being a champion for stories. Thank you for helping the nonprofit sector, and thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Of course.
The Fundraising Elevator is produced by Swaim Strategies at the studios of the AV department. The program is produced and directed by Steve Osborne, with audio engineering and original music by Dwayne Anderson and Heidi Christensen. Video production by John Collier. Graphic design by Pendulum Creative Group. And voiceover by Josh Boykin.
Hey y'all, it's Kristen. Before we leave, I want to ask for your help to make the podcast grow. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please like, follow, and subscribe to the Fundraising Elevator. And if you're getting a lot out of the show, share it with a friend. Leave us a review. These things help make sure that the podcast continues heading up. Thanks so much for being here and tuning in.
Event planners are discovering Avenue, the Pacific Northwest's new AV-forward event venue, intentionally designed with nonprofit fundraising events in mind. From the 93-foot video production wall to the highest quality sound and lighting, premier AV features are included in every venue rental. You'll find the space and audiovisual enhancements to create your unique and memorable event. Visit avenueportland.com to schedule your personal tour.